I would like to open the Tuesday, June 4th, Planning Board regular meeting and public hearings. It is 6:03 p.m. and we are being video recorded. Are we going out live?
Yes.
We're doing both, okay. All right, first up are administrative items. First one is 146 State Road, file number 23-030 SBA. Close out and release the consultant review balance and interest of $1,000 plus interest.
Yep, so this is for a previous filing. The applicant has since refiled for a major site plan approval. So we just need to close out and give back the funds from the previous filing.
Okay, and we have the money for the new filing?
We do, yep.
Okay. So I'd entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move we close out 146 State Road, 23030 SBA, and return the $1,000 plus interest.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Next up would be Isidoro Court, file number 21-002C. Close out and release the consultant review balance and interest of $500 plus interest.
So this is for a previous filing. This ended up getting appealed in court. It has been dismissed since, so our decision stands as is with that. We just need to close out and release the funds back to the applicant.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
You want a similar motion?
Please.
Mr. Chair, I move we close out Isidoro Court 21-002C and release the balance $500 plus interest.
Second. All those in favor? Aye. Next up is approval not required, A&R, file number 24-016A. Request by the applicant for endorsement of a two-lot plan of land located at 519 American Legion Highway, Assessors Map 66, Lot 15-14A. Mr. Leach.
Good evening, Sean Leach, Northeast Engineers, representing Mac Long and Long Realty Trust on this particular item. What we're doing here is basically cutting out, we have an existing lot that encompasses all this. We're cutting out a parcel that has a building on it. It's a storage building and putting it in with the other storage buildings on this particular lot. All the lots have adequate frontage, upland area. The offsets, 10 foot off this side, 15 foot off side, meet all the requirements for zoning. So basically we're just creating this parcel A. Since there's two different ownership entities, we're creating parcel A that has to be deeded off into this particular parcel.
So that lot's not a separate lot. It
No,
gets deeded to the
it's going
other.
to be deeded. It's labeled as unbuildable. Narrative there, but it's going to be deeded combined with this lot. This will just increase the area for this lot, and all these buildings will meet the zoning requirements.
Will they all be for storage or different uses?
Well, there's different uses. There's different uses on these two buildings. This is storage. These are storage.
That's what I meant, yeah.
Yeah, so there'll be all one use on one property.
And the setbacks, that 10-foot setback?
Depending on how you interpret, we want to make sure where the rear and front side setbacks are. Rear would be 6 feet, side yards are 10 feet. We made sure it's all 10, but we also included 15 on this particular, just for extra area.
And where's the entrance to this building?
When you say entrance,
West side.
the entrance is on this side?
Yeah, the doors are on that side. It's access from the storage facility.
Okay, so to use this building, you don't have to go on the other property?
No, right on.
So my Google map shows a big Is it a retention pond to the east?
Right here?
Yeah, right in there.
Yeah, that's the detention pond for this facility. So that's another reason we're separating this out. This is for this. This is all going over here.
Looks like a big pond. There's a boat next to it.
We didn't put the boat in it, though. We kept it to the side.
So, where does the roof runoff go from this building?
It's tied into that retention pond.
Yeah, everything goes into this detention pond here. The paved, this is paved and everything goes to this detention pond. It's part of a site plan approval from years ago.
So, if this is now gonna be a separate, on a separate lot, does it need an easement to use that?
I think you're asking, do you need an easement? Is that what you're looking for? It doesn't need an easement? I don't believe it needs an easement. There's already an existing tie-in now. Possibly, legally, they could put it into the deed itself, but it doesn't.
Yeah, it's,
I don't think it needs to be required to be shown on the plan.
Okay. Comments from the board? Questions? Recommendation?
We recommend that you approve the A&R because it meets the criteria for endorsement under its regulations. It's really essentially just kind of swapping a piece of land, so the frontage of everything isn't changing. There's still adequate uplands. I don't think there'll be any, McKeady Court can handle any vehicular traffic that swap creates, so can American Legion Highway.
Okay. Any other comments?
Jim, I guess I'm just wondering about your point about the drainage, because if these lots become separate owners, and you've got the retention pond on one lot, and the other lot is using that to drain their roof onto, or maybe there's even surface drainage that drains into that pond. Shouldn't there be some, and they become separated sometime?
There certainly should be, but I don't think we have the authority to.
We can't mandate it.
With an A&R, all we can do is say it is a subdivision or it isn't a subdivision, and therefore, if it isn't a subdivision, per the subdivision rules, then we should endorse it. And we can't condition it, which is.
if it would please the board, I don't mind putting it in the deed, as Sean mentioned. It's very simple. It's just, this is housekeeping. We're keeping storage with storage and retail with retail, make everything line up clean. So I don't have a problem putting that in there.
If you say so, that's good.
Sean, are the roof drains actually piped into it, or is just the gutters running onto the asphalt?
No, the roof drain's tied in. That retention pond was designed to handle that building and all of the buildings congruently.
So I think you need it for all those buildings, right?
Yeah, the retention pond is staying with the retail portion.
Right.
It would only be, what you're referring to is that single building that we're splitting off. The roof drainage from that is the only building that's storage that drains into that retention pond.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, so I would entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we endorse the A&R for 519 American Legion Highway, which is 24-016A, for the reasons outlined by the assistant planner.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We're too early for the 6:15 public hearing. So, do you have something that's quick from the assistant planner's report?
My reports are the project reviews for the next two public hearings.
Okay, how about the planner's report?
I've got a handful of items. The Yes, the first one I can go over really quick is that we've been talking with GZA Environmental to contract with them to help us prepare a coastal zone management coastal resilience grant application. They have forwarded to you, this was on top of all of your packets, it's this email transmission with the blue on the side. They've quoted the cost as being $4,000 for that cost. We do have some spare funds in our professional services line item, and so I would ask for the board to authorize me to spend that $4,000 before the end of the fiscal year to prepare this grant application.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, by the time I'm through talking, it'll be 6:15. So next up will be the 6:15 public hearing for Salty Breeze, Inc., file number 23-032 SPA-SP-RM, continued from October 17th and December 12th, 2023, and January 23rd, 2024, and March 19th. 2024, special permit request for a recreational marijuana dispensary use, site plan modifications at 260 State Road.
Okay. Good evening, Sean Leach for Salty Breeze. This is a project you saw earlier in the year, this year, and we had some comments. One of the major comments that was needed to be addressed was a traffic study, which we had provided to the town. And a lighting design, which we have provided to the town today. It should have gone away with this permit set. We have received the comments on June 3rd from SW Cole. I believe, there aren't any outstanding issues. There are a couple of advisory things in here. I don't know if you want to go through them individually, or do you want me to go through
Please, individually.
Okay, yeah, I think. So, and in section 9.91, purpose of the intent, is to regulate the siting of a marijuana establishment by minimizing adverse effects on adjacent properties and other places for children to congregate. The siting of this facility is away from all of those receptors, so to speak. It's in the adult entertainment overlay district. Again, this needs to have a host agreement from the selectmen, and this is the only way to start the host agreement process is to get a site plan approval process from this board. The recommendation would be, this would need to be addressed by planning board directly regarding the location of the facility and the compliance with the established regulation. I don't know if that's necessarily to be discussed. We're citing this next to another marijuana facility away from, there's no residential areas, residential properties around this, basically surrounded by a giant swamp. And of course, Route 6 to the south. So I don't know. He's recommending that it may or may not be appropriate. Since it's an existing building, existing former retail building, there isn't a lot of impact on this site at all, actually, except for redoing the parking. So I don't know how the planning board feels about the actual site location within the town.
I think you can go on.
Okay, all right. Item 2, reference front yard distance is 50 feet. This building was created before the offset, and it's only 49.5 feet. There's no plans to expand any of the footprint on this. It's a pre-existing non-conforming condition. We don't expect to do anything out front. In fact, everything we're moving as far as out front, when I say out front, out towards Route 6, basically is going to be removed and be less impact. I don't know how the planning board feels about this, but I think, we recommended that we get a waiver for that 50-foot offset as required. I don't see a big problem since we're only asking for a half-a-foot difference. I have a feeling it was supposed to be 50 foot when the building was built, but they didn't know what the sideline of Route 6 was. It has changed over the years.
Right. Okay.
Okay, item number 3. Regarding low shrubs, 3-foot maximum should be used. We have drawn up a new landscape plan and complied with this, and that is what SW Cole has agreed to. Item 3B, Lighting, no lighting plans provided to show the proposed meets the requirement to enhance safety. I think it's an error on our part. I have hard copies of the lighting plan with all the cut sheets and details. I have forwarded it on to the assistant town planner and the town planner from RAB. I think it meets all the requirements of the lighting with all the details that go with it. I can provide hard copies. I don't know if you have it. I can set the copies here. I want to briefly go through them. But I think it meets the requirements, the lighting requirements, the downlighting requirements, and
It's not the lighting,
It's the lighting spec sheet.
it's
that
just a
was
different,
updated.
Is this the same thing?
I think it is.
yeah.
We received it in March. I thought we had addressed it in March.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the same.
So the design of the lighting is in compliance with the requirements of the planning board. Everything that I think is in the report, I did provide a PDF file, which is easier to read than these small copies, to tell you the truth. Okay, I'll move on to item 4, sheet 7 of 8, provide details of outlet structures, we've done that. And as SW Cole has noted, revised plan was modified and provided the requested information. Item number 5, Mass DOT permit is required. We realize that, but it's kind of the dog chasing the tail here. We need to have the site plan approval before we can go to Mass DOT to get the curb cut permit. Since there's already an existing curb cut, actually 2 curb cuts, and we're reducing it to 1 and making it so it meets the requirements of Mass DOT, I don't anticipate any issues with that particular requirement. We just have to know that this one entrance, wide entrance, is adequate for what you believe the facility needs. Right now, there's an entrance here, an entrance here, we're using existing entrance. And actually, these requirements of the radius of 30 feet are actually within existing paved area. We don't anticipate any problems.
So how far are you from the next driveway?
It's about 200 feet to the next entrance to the coastal healing.
Coastal hailing.
Right.
Yeah.
And how far are you away from a crossover on Route 6?
Oh, that I'm not sure.
If you look at the site plan, it'll
Yeah, I think it looked the same.
go back one.
Go back one.
Michael is saying if you go back one, we can answer that.
The crossover is well over here. That's station approximately 16450. Our entrance is going to be approximately station 159, so that's 520 feet, give or take.
Okay.
Yeah, the western end is a little closer. Another crossover. Scroll the map there. Can you,
The next one up to the west.
to the west.
The
No,
next,
yeah,
the
This
next,
one, the one-
Yeah.
There.
Okay, all right, so they wouldn't be doing this to get to the facility, they'd be doing this to get to the facility, so that's kind of moved, but it's, again, that's at about 192, so that's about 100, 200, 400 feet to where our entrance is.
Yeah.
give or take.
But they might be coming out of the facility and traveling west and making
Going this way, then.
to do a U-turn, yeah.
Yeah, you-
Crossing over the lane.
yeah, I think a lot of these issues are addressed in the traffic impact report and some of the conditions.
Yeah.
But they didn't, the traffic engineers did not see a problem with that particular thing. In fact, that's why it was recommended to not have a double entrance, to remove this entrance here and push it back a little further this way.
okay, continue.
Okay, final 5B is traffic impact study. It's highly recommended. I'm not sure if they ever received this traffic study. We forwarded it on a couple weeks ago. We had a traffic study performed. They did peak flows. And basically they considered a couple of things. They considered Saturday flows. They considered the parcel next door and the use next door, and basically found that the roadway and the site distances and everything were adequate for this particular design and facility.
Yeah, we have the traffic study, so. Do you know if Cole saw it?
The traffic impact study? He did, yeah. He did have a comment on the study. Just that, I guess it wasn't referenced in there, the current traffic for coastal healing and also the bowling alley.
On page 12 of the traffic study, it deals with the coastal healing. I talked to the engineer Crossman, and on page 5, it deals with existing traffic, which includes the coastal healing, but page 12 more specifically deals with the coastal healing. If you look at page 12, paragraph 3.
Yeah, I do see it. What about the bowling alley?
The bowling alley, I don't believe was addressed directly, but it was considered as part of the existing traffic flow, which is on page 5. The concern being, I mean, obviously you consider every business on Route 6 is considered as an existing traffic flow. They specifically took coastal healing because it's obviously right next door, same type of use, same type of thing. So the issue would be, is there too many retail facilities next to each other, and should you have one entrance for the two of them, and that type of thing? And they didn't see a problem with what was going on.
So maybe you know this or not, I don't know. Does the state regulation have any quandaries about having two facilities next to each other?
Not as long as there's enough distance between the two. In other words, enough slowdown distance between the two. I think they would prefer, but they can't mandate that you have one entrance for two different ownerships. Typically with a plaza type situation, you have one entrance, one exit. I don't think there's anything they can do about this. We are continuing the same sidewalk from coastal healing down in front of this particular facility as far as our property extends. But they can recommend that. I don't know if they will. They can recommend that, but it's not. They can't necessarily mandate allow someone to go onto your property or use the same thing. They did not. The traffic study did not indicate that that was going to be a problem. The distance between the two, with enough distance between the two. They may recommend a deceleration lane with an existing breakdown lanes now. I'm not sure. I find it highly unlikely for the amount of traffic.
You're talking about Mass DEP,
Mass
Highway.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the marijuana group at the state level.
The marijuana group
Good
next door.
afternoon, everyone. I can chime in here. This is Brian. I'm joining you guys remotely. I apologize for not being there. I'm the cannabis consultant that's working with Salty Breeze, who will also be helping to manage the facility. And no, there is no requirement in terms of how close or far away to establishments that need to be located from one another.
And they can abut?
They can. In fact, there are a number of examples in Massachusetts where two competing stores are in the same strip mall, sharing the same parking lot and everything.
Okay.
Can I ask you a question, Sean?
Sure.
You're not changing the existing footprint, correct?
That's correct.
So you're doing a modification
There'll
to
be
the...
some upgrades to the inside, obviously, and then some face cleaning up, basically. I think we submitted earlier an architectural showing how the facade was going to be changing from what it is now. But there's nothing dramatic, there's no bump outs, there's no anything. Obviously, handicap ramps and that type of thing are going to be added, so.
Would the applicant be willing to put in a bike rack?
I don't see that to be a problem, putting a bike rack in. I'm not sure how the bike's going to get there.
Say again?
So I don't see that being an issue at all. We want to do that.
Because I think it will be a bike route. So
Eventually, yeah.
Eventually.
Hopefully.
There's a plan too.
Continue.
That's it.
So, planners, what's your,
So there are 2 waivers that are required. One is from the site plan standards for the sidewalk buffer area. I would assume that the reason why the sidewalk is being proposed in the location that it is so that it's all within the state right of way, which is fine from our perspective, but that does require a waiver from the site plan regulations. So typically we would require a 5-foot strip between the road and the sidewalk. And then there is a waiver necessary for the landscape buffer east of the driveway. There should be a landscape buffer, I think, for 15 feet along the front of the parking lot. However, and you can see the landscaping plan here, it's heavily vegetated back through here, and most of their screening is going to be with these trees and shrubbery up here. So I don't know if you'd be requesting a waiver.
Right. I mean, this is going to eventually fill in by itself, I would imagine, because there's going to be no activity right now. It's used for turnarounds and that type of thing, but there's no activity right now.
So those are 2 waivers that we identified as necessary for approval of the site plan, both of which we're okay with.
so this would, the sidewalk would go right into the sidewalk that has been approved.
That's correct.
To the west.
Continuation, yes.
And that sidewalk is exactly the same.
Yeah, the problem you have, the route section out here is very narrow, and the existing pavement travels way with the median and everything is very wide. So there isn't a lot of room to work, I guess, is the best way to do it. So we tried to maximize that by taking that whole thing. Typically you'd ask for 5 feet. This one is not 5 feet, so you'd have a funny jog.
Mr. Chair, I don't think you could do it anyway at Mass Highway. This right now is designed to Mass Highway standards.
Yeah.
So that waiver's kind of redundant, I guess.
So, that's the actual road, not the right of way?
Oh yeah, this is the pavement right here. It's literally 5 feet from the right of way. It's very close. It's probably, I think it's 104-foot wide layout, it's a weird layout, and the total width of the pavement and median is like 87 feet. And it's kind of tucked to one side. They actually have done several layouts in this area, and they should have made it wider over the years, and they have not.
Okay, anything else on the planners?
No, you have the recommended conditions that I provided in my report. The last 3, the red ones are just specific to this project. The 1 through 11 are standard conditions that were also in the coastal healing decision. So if there's any additional conditions that you feel should be placed in here, then
There should be one more, just the inclusion of
The bike rack.
which Mr. Kearney agreed to.
Yeah, okay. So any more questions or comments from the board? Anybody in the audience? Yes, sir. Yeah, come to the podium, please.
Gary Bernal, I'm a direct butter of the property at 248 State Road. I have a couple of questions just for clarification. This is a full site plan review, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a way for us to get more information on the operational review, hours of operation, security plans, things like that, that will make help the planning board be informed of what's going to be done?
I think that should be part of the special permit for them.
Okay. I mean,
So if not the
if
site.
there is, we just want to make sure that we can all see it and read about it. Is it? I did see the latest files. One of the questions we had, because we have PTSD from the same thing in the past, but we were asked about also from the police and fire to present a plan to them as well. We would definitely like to see that. One of the things that we noticed was the fire truck turning radius in and out of the facility to make sure that everything's done right, and that everything we're following the special permit and all the zoning things that we have for the marijuana establishments. So we just like to make sure that we get all the information we can from that, please.
Thank you. Do we have any of that information?
Amy, if you could pull up the fire and police reports and weigh in on that. The hours of operation are restricted in the zoning bylaw, and so a marijuana establishment cannot operate between the hours of 9 p.m. and 8 a.m. We can put that in the conditions of the approval. But it's already in the zoning bylaw.
In our bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
But is the applicant's intention any different?
Our intention is no different. No, we would correspond with the bylaws. All of this information is going to be presented in the board of selectmen if we get your approval at the same time.
So, Mr. Chair, just so I can try and keep this, so I think I understand it. What I think we are being requested to do is that there are 11 or 12 findings, depending on, I think the bike rack is the 12th finding. There are 2 waivers being requested, and we are being requested to approve a special permit. Have I got that right, Bob?
Yeah.
So, I know that with Coastal Healing, it was about 49 meetings over 17 years, and with tremendous fear that this was going to be the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on Route 6 with all the traffic. And none of that came to pass. And so now we're in the land of reality, thanks to the experience that Coastal Healing has provided. So we're probably not going to need that many meetings in order to do number 2. Based on the planner's report and the findings that they have laid out in Amy's report, I would first of all move to close the public hearing, and then move to approve the special permit and approve the 2 waivers.
So I think before we consider the motion to close the hearing, I think Amy was looking up the responses from the fire department and the police department.
The
So,
fire department's responses on this one.
yeah.
Okay.
I spoke with the fire department on this. The reason they checked disapproval is because of the code synopsis they need. But I have spoke with them more recently than this review was submitted, I believe, in October, when it was originally filed.
October 17th, 2023.
Yep.
What do they mean by code synopsis?
So there's a certain, I don't know how to, code synopsis, I guess, that they have to operate by on what type of establishment or use it is for when if they were to get an emergency call. And that code needs to be given to the building inspector and the fire department.
It's an occupancy issue as opposed to a planning issue, I guess is the way I would put it. In other words,
It's a what issue?
an occupancy issue. In other words, they have to meet certain building code and other code requirements in order to inhabit the building. So it's more of an internal than an external thing. I don't know if Brian had provided that yet, but I believe it's one of those things where they're kind of ahead of the site plan review. They should be concentrating more on the site plan review of the truck can turn around and whether it should be sprinkled, I guess. But obviously, we have to meet the code synopsis review from the fire department in occupancy.
And if there were amendments necessary to the plan following the code synopsis review, the applicant could approach the planning board for a site plan amendment.
So does that prohibit us from, that's just another step that the applicant's going to have to do,
Right.
but can do that after our approval?
And, right, and if after your approval, the fire department requires modifications to their site plan, then they have to come back to the planning board to
Okay.
get that site plan amendment approved.
Okay. Learn something new every day. I've only been here 18 years and never heard that.
And the police had no comments that I see in the folder.
Okay. So I would entertain a motion.
So then I would move to close the public hearing. And you want to take that just separately?
Yeah.
Okay, close the public hearing.
Are you second?
I am.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then based on the recommendations of the planning staff and the findings that they have given us, I would move approval of the 2 waivers and approval of the special permit with the conditions and findings as laid out in Amy's report.
One small
Yeah.
amendment to
Yeah.
that, there's actually 3 waivers. There's the
Oh,
waiver
3.
for the half foot of the structure.
Sorry,
Um,
wasn't paying attention.
That's all right, it's a.
So do we need to read the findings and the waivers into the record?
We can, yeah.
Please.
Do you have the waivers up?
I do have the waivers.
You want a second before that?
Second.
Okay, the waivers are from the Town of Westport Planning Board Rules and Regulations governing, or excuse me, not governing the subdivision. Rules and Regulations of Westport Planning Board Site Plan Approval as amended January 2014. That is a waiver from sections 20.5.d requiring a 5-foot sidewalk buffer, 20.6.1.c requiring that there is a landscape buffer along the frontage of the development, and a waiver from, let me find this section, 9.9.3.4 requiring that the minimum front yard distance is 50 feet. The existing front yard is 49.5 feet, requiring a half-foot waiver.
And the findings of fact, the project as presented protects adjoining premises by avoiding adverse effects on the natural environment and abutters. The buffer for abutters has been adequately addressed and or provided as required under zoning bylaw 15.4.2. The project as presented provides for convenient and safe vehicular and pedestrian movement, and the locations of the driveway opening is convenient and safe in relation to the vehicular and pedestrian traffic circulation, including emergency vehicles on or adjoining the site. Number 3, the project as presented provides an adequate arrangement of parking spaces in relation to the proposed use of the premises. As per zoning, 13 spaces are required and 15 spaces have been provided with 2 handicap spaces. Number 4, the project as presented provides adequate methods of disposal of refuse or other wastes resulting from the uses permitted on the site.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay, any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I think I will vote to approve this. It is the adaptive reuse of the existing building. It improves the curb cut at the entrance, provides parking, and provides for the first time on this property some real stormwater management. So this is really a beneficial reuse of property. And also just from glancing at the traffic report, compared to the through traffic movements in each direction here, which are in the 390s and 400s, we've got turning movements in and out of this place at 25 miles an hour. So this is relatively low impact, and if the trend in marijuana stores continues, probably the 25 trips is a generous estimate.
I would agree with my colleague. I mean, they have the sidewalks, they design the entrance to Mass Highway standards, they meet all of our requirements. I mean, we zoned this area for this one additional use in town. And like my colleague says, rehabilitate a distressed piece of property. I think it's a good plan, and I will also vote in favor.
Yeah, I have no objections, and I think it's always welcome to have a new business in town, and wish them success.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
So that was, we're doing the special permit or the site plan review? I forget which one that was.
Just site plan.
Site plan.
With
So
the
we
finding.
need to do the special permit. So I'd entertain a motion to approve special permit.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Who seconded that? Bob?
Thank you.
Okay.
Have a good night.
Yep.
You
Thank
too,
you.
Sean.
Next up is the 6:30 public hearing for plat 21 lot 8A Mellows Way, file number 23-028 SPA-LID, continued from October 3rd, November 14th of 2023, February 20th, and April 23rd of 2024. low-impact development request for after-the-fact site clearing exceeding 40,000 square feet.
Good evening. For the record, Bill Smith from Civil Engineering Concepts. This is a continued public hearing. At the last meeting, the board endorsed us meeting with SW Cole on the site. That was done on May 10th. We shot grades while they were there. We looked at the flow patterns, fairly flat area where some of the neighbors have raised issues to the board. This plan represents kind of an addendum to our low-impact development. We shot grades all the way down the center of the road. We found our low point, which was the 234.30, right in this general area over here. Brian Poisson and Derek Mello from SW Cole, myself and my surveyor were out there, and it was determined that this would be an appropriate place to put a berm. The berm would be half a foot higher than the low point in the road, so that none of the water would come from Mello's Way across the property towards the east. Spot grades were taken in here, and you can see that the elevations would allow any water that would build up to relieve itself towards the west instead of coming towards the east. This is in support of the SW Cole report that was presented to the board prior to our last public hearing, and that's what I talked with the developer, no longer developer, but the applicant, and he would be willing to do that work.
Okay, do we have SW Cole's concurrence for this?
We do.
And what's the time frame?
I would say within the next 30 days we could have that accomplished.
Comments?
I haven't seen the Cole report. I'm hoping that it's in support of what's presented here.
You can read it for the record.
Okay, hold on.
I can read it too.
Do you want to bring that up and I can just read conditions?
I wouldn't ask you to read the whole report into the record. If there was just a summary or just a recommendation.
Mr. Chair, I have a question. Bill, is the road blocking water? If I could have that plan back up for a second.
Did he have an updated report? This is from.
No, okay, so
This is
From-
April.
not for May 10th. For May 10th, though, I had a conversation with Derek of SW Cole stating that you guys are both out on site and basically okay of what you're proposing, and he's seen this plan.
Okay, all right.
And he's okay with that. I can get confirmation down.
I just wanted to make sure that, that they were in support of what we had. They basically said, start here, end here,
Yep.
keep half a foot above the road, so that's what's reflected in this plan.
From what I understand is that when you went out to the site, they essentially designed this with you and you just put out a plan and
Exactly.
for the board.
Yeah, that's what we agreed to as a solution in the field.
Okay, so what is the, what should we do here? I think perhaps we tentatively agree to have them do this. And when it's done, come back and get us to sign off?
Yeah, well, I would,
See the history of this.
I would recommend that we approve their plan with conditions that I've supplied in my report. And in the conditions, it says, upon the completion of installation of the small berm, you have to provide an as-built and topographical survey to ensure that the berm and the vegetation are relevant and functional for the site. So I think that as long as we were to approve the low-impact development application with conditions, then we would be fine. They would have to come back with an as-built anyway, showing what they've done.
But do we need to have a surety?
I think you're going to, you control the property right now, and if the work is not done to your satisfaction, we'd have to go back through the board, Cole, make sure everybody's happy with it. I suspect that we're talking about 58 feet of a fairly small berm, it's around 5 cubic yards of material that would have to be placed. I envision that myself, my surveyor will be out there on site when the work is being done. So as it's finished, we'll do the as-built, and then we'll get that back to you. I suspect that the approval subject to would release the project until after the as-built is submitted to your satisfaction.
Okay. Before we do anything, I'd like to open it up to the audience. Would you like to?
I mean, if they, I don't have it, my name is Tom Lockman of the 54 Lighthouse Lane. I don't have any objections as long as they come up, I'm not an engineer. As long as Dave's saying that it'll drain. The only thing I've noticed is there's some tree stumps in that area that might block the drainage. I don't know who dumped them there, but they're there after I took photos.
There hasn't been any recent work.
No, I know. I just what I'm saying. They're there. I took photos and then I said, "Where do they come from?"
What we can do while we have equipment out there is just make sure that we have a positive flow path from here towards the west. And that's the reason that I had the spot grades here to show that there was a path for water to move away from the east towards your property.
Yeah. I mean, we've had 2 weeks ago we had a flood, so I mean, that's never happened before. Even our hurricane never happened. So,
What also concerns me, and maybe you can tell me, because we've had people from Lighthouse Lane say that when the water comes over, it floods Lighthouse Lane.
yeah, it does.
Itself. Lighthouse Lane, I don't know when it was built, but should have had positive drainage off of the road somewhere.
Yeah.
And why is it accumulate on the road? That's a question in my mind. You can't answer it, but it's a question that I have, that it must have been not constructed properly.
It misses the drain by about 3 feet. There's a drain at say 6 foot to the right of the property line, 50 Lighthouse Lane. And when it floods down, it misses that drain, 95% of it. It goes down the street to the drain.
It doesn't get picked up by any drain.
No, it goes down the street though. It goes down about 200 feet down the street. It goes about a third of the way up the street.
Okay. Anyway, so the question is, what do we do here? Because normally we would have a low impact development with another project. We don't have that. We would have surety. We don't have that. So what do we do here? Approve it, but subject to their coming back with a as-built?
Do you have more conditions
I mean,
on here that
I
you'd
can,
like to?
Yeah, I can read all of them. There's 7 that I have included. The first one is, the site shall be developed in accordance with the recommendations and observations set forth in the most recent site visit performed by SW Cole and the applicant's civil engineer, Bill Smith, on May 10th, 2024, while also addressing the enforcement order dated June 26th of 2023. Number 2, revised plan shall be submitted to the planning office and town consulting engineer for final approval. Number 3, topsoil shall not be removed from the site and shall be reused to prevent erosion and support pollinator-friendly habitat vegetation. Additional suitable organic material may be used where needed. 4, the applicant shall establish vegetative growth on the site where the areas are disturbed due to the clearing in excess of 40,000 square feet with the native pollinator mix. 5, the applicant shall install and construct a small gravel berm approximately 58 feet long to the height of 6 inches above the low point of 234.30 in the roadway. The location of the suggested beginning and end of the berm was indicated by SW Cole and GPS located at that time. The top of the proposed berm elevation would be 234.80. Upon completion of the installation of the small berm, the applicant shall provide an as-built topographical survey of the site to ensure that the berm and vegetation remain relevant and functional for the site. The board may require updated drainage calculations based on the as-built plans. The applicant shall be required to make adjustments to conform to the approved plans. And number 7, trash and materials observed on site by SW Cole shall be removed by the applicant and be properly disposed of.
So, I have some questions. Where is this vegetation going to be planted? And it's going to be a pollinator mix where, and how big an area?
I think that's up to the board. That's what we discussed in previous public hearings, that the site is revegetating, but not as fast as one would hope, but maybe just spreading some pollinator mix that's native around would just help the site. But I mean, if that's not necessary, if the berm is being put in, then we can eliminate that.
Can I respond? The site is revegetating. To put the pollinator mix typically requires that you remove all of the vegetation that's there and then replant it. That seems to be counterproductive. We would be happy to do this work. Our opinion is that the site is revegetating. We're trying to control the water so that it doesn't affect the neighbors to the east. There's a large expanse of somewhat cleared area here, but there's a lot of existing vegetation that was undisturbed that surrounds the perimeter of the site. And what has been disturbed is filling in pretty well in the course of a year or so. So we would prefer, and I'd have to confer with my client about putting additional vegetation there. Again, we would certainly do this work that's proposed here. We would hope to not have to be able to go forward and replant vegetation.
So to answer your question about process, Jim, there's still an open violation on this property. And so typically what would happen in the violation, the code enforcement process, is that the building inspector, after the violation has been addressed, would go out and do an inspection of the site. So his inspection would be an inspection of the work that they're doing. Obviously, they're not going to revegetate the whole site with trees, but perhaps address some of the drainage issues that may have been caused by initiating that work. And that's what is proposed here. And so that's what the building inspector would go and inspect.
Well, I think at the minimum, a pollinator mix should be planted around the disturbance that you're going to create by creating this berm.
We could certainly do that. Now, when we spoke with Derek and Roger, they, from SW Cole, they indicated that they would have a preference that it be a bank run gravel, something that's slightly porous so water could move through it if need be, but as we talked about, do you want something that's impenetrable, or their preference was the bank run gravel system. So I don't know how well a pollinator mix will will grow in that disturbed area, but we can certainly put something down there so that it has a chance. We may be disturbing some of the edges, and we can certainly plant that as well.
And with newly mounded stuff like you're going to do, I don't know how wide that's going to be.
So we're 30 inches at the base, 12 inches across the top, and it would be approximately 1 foot tall, half a foot above the low point in the road.
Right, but I think these things have a tendency to compact and get lower. So at what point do we measure it? After it's been there?
Well,
Or do you make it higher so that when it compacts, it's going to conform?
so we would compact it in place with typically the bucket of the backhoe or the excavation equipment that's doing that, and that should get it fairly well compacted. You know, if we will bring it up a little higher so that if there is any sediment that still maintains the desired half a foot above the road.
Mr. Chair, I think if you, well, SW Cole recommended a bank run gravel, maybe if you use the 3-inch minus gravel and just use the vibratory diesel plate on it, you'd compact it to 100% of compaction very easily, and then we wouldn't have to worry about any settlement. And it would also, if you use something like 3-inch minus and you get a lot of flow against it, it'll stay there. You know, in grass, if you use a natural gravel, plants will grow out of it. Especially if it's close to the water table.
That'll certainly help, sure.
And one thing I would like to say too, Mr. Chair, through all of this, you know, civil engineering concepts is going out there all these times and coming, I think he's kind of on point on trying to get us through this, right?
I would love to do that.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that it gets done and it's a permanent solution. So planners, how do you suggest we do this? Approve it with all those conditions? But I think we have to enumerate where the seed or the revegetation is going to take place. I don't think it's sufficient to say it's going to be revegetated because you're not going to do the 30 acres.
It says where areas were disturbed due to the clearing, but
That's the whole place.
we can, that's condition number 4. However, if anyone has like any ideas on how to reword it. Are we doing the 3-inch minus gravel or the pollinator mix?
I think we're talking about two different things.
Okay.
The 3-inch minus, the gravel berm is the gravel berm, and that's a simple piece of work, and if it keeps water from flowing from this site onto the backyards of the butters on the across the street, that's what we want to accomplish. Okay, so that's the issue. Now, whether or not the board wants to do something about the disturbed areas that are revegetating naturally, that's another matter. From my perspective, as long as it doesn't contribute. I mean, we're all struggling with this as an after-the-fact, you know, low-impact design. I mean, this is backwards, but to close out, we can't let the owner here stand in, you know, in limbo for the rest of time. We need to close this. We need to close this thing up, and we either let the disturbed areas continue to revegetate naturally. I mean, if this is settled, there'll be a for sale sign on this thing, and someone will be building a house in a couple of years. So, you know, I feel, you know, trying to have it revegetated when it's likely to,
there'll be a house built there in a few years. Doesn't seem like a good approach to the problem. And as long as the status of the site isn't flooding the abutters on either side, then I'm perfectly happy to let it take its natural course.
I would recommend that condition is struck from the conditions of approval. I think, like you said, it's kind of a moot point. Let the site revegetate the way it would naturally. It very well may be developed sometime near the future.
Okay, so read the conditions with that.
Okay. Number 1, the site shall be developed in accordance with the recommendations and observations set forth in the most recent site visit performed by SW Cole and the applicant civil engineer Bill Smith on May 10th, 2024, while also addressing the enforcement order dated June 26th of 2023. Number 2, revised plan shall be submitted to the planning office and town consulting engineer for final approval. Number 3, I'm sorry.
Can I just jump in? So number 2, I think we can strike because we already have the plan.
Okay. Strike number 2. Number 3, topsoil shall not be removed from the site and shall be reused to prevent erosion and support pollinator-friendly habitat vegetation. Additional suitable organic material may be used where needed. Number 4, the applicant shall install and construct a small gravel berm approximately 58 feet long and the height of 6 inches above the low point in the roadway. The location of the suggested beginning and end of the berm was indicated by SW Cole and GPS located at that time. The top of the proposed berm elevation would be 234.80. Upon completion and the installation of the small berm, the applicant shall provide an as-built topographical survey to the site to ensure that the berm and vegetation remain relevant and functional for the site. The board may require updated drainage calculations based on the as-built plans. The applicant shall be required to make adjustments to conform to the approved plans. Last, trash and materials observed on site by SW Cole shall be removed by the applicant and properly disposed of.
Okay, so do I have a motion?
So the motion is to,
The motion would be for approve the low impact development project with conditions and recommendations as mentioned above, as it meets the purpose and design standards of the town of Westport zoning bylaws, section 8.2, low impact development site plan approval.
so moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Jim, excuse me, I'm going to excuse myself.
Okay, thank you for staying.
Well, we got the important business done, right?
Right. Okay, next would be the continuation of the planner's report.
In regards to our Route 6 neighborhood planning grant, so I need to submit this tomorrow, but we've partnered with Serped on a grant application where we draft a neighborhood plan for Route 6 from Fall River to Dartmouth. This is going to be a $100,000 grant request to develop that plan, develop a vision for what development should look like in the corridor in the future, including seeing what the community would support for like small scale residential development and commercial development as well, keeping it on that smaller scale from some of the feedback we got leading up to town meeting and following town meeting that seemed preferable. So one thing we're looking forward to designing with them is maybe creating the foundation for a 40Y starter home district. So it's a state legislation to allow kind of smaller scale single family home development at an affordable rate to seniors downsizing, starter homes for new families. So we'll see if it gets selected for that. For an update on our online permitting, we've selected a vendor for our online permitting. It's a company called Full Circle Technologies. They're a local company based in Boston. They have a lot of spread around the state of Massachusetts and also some of, I think they have a presence in New Hampshire and Maine as well. But they have, they came recommended from all their references, and they did several demos with the town, and it seemed like there was buy-in from different departments to, people really liked it. It seemed intuitive, and their product is basically a one-to-one fit with how permitting is done in Massachusetts. So I don't think there will be a whole lot of customization that'll be necessary, which is nice because then we can get a product that's ready right out of the box. So we're going to have the following modules integrated online. It'll be building, code enforcement, board of health, fire department, planning, ZBA, town clerk, and conservation commission. This service will also interface with the assessor's database, and we're going to integrate it with JS. So it's going to be a very big upgrade over what we're.
Super. And you've got total buy-in from all the people who've got to use it?
I don't know if I want to say it was total buy-in, but it made a lot more. So we did multiple demos. We did four different demos, and there was more buy-in with this one. There was less apprehension about using this product than the others. So it was a positive response. So onto our hazard mitigation plan. Last night, the select board voted to create a hazard mitigation plan committee. Through talking with the town administrator, we're going to keep this committee a little bit on the smaller side. So there's only going to be five members, and then we'll have a handful of advisory members on the committee. So the committee is going to be me, Jim Whiten, Phil Weinberg, Police Chief Chris Dunn, and Fire Chief Dan Baldwin. And then we'll have advisory committee members, including Bob, Westport River Watershed Alliance, and then Sam Haynes from Coastal Zone Management, Nathan Cochran, who's Westport's MEMA coordinator, town administrator, assistant planner, highway surveyor, harbor master, and conservation agent. But the town administrator asked that the committee be kept to a smaller number, just so you don't have issues with maintaining a quorum. So I've contacted them, and I'm waiting on next steps from Par Engineering, who's our contractor. And then I have a couple of updates that are matters not reasonably anticipated within 48 hours. I already gave you an update on the CZN application, which you all approved for contracting with GZA. And then on Friday, we received notice from the National Coastal Resilience Fund that we've been selected to move on to the next round of funding.
Great.
So we'll be submitting and that's the application that we're doing. I'm coordinating jointly with Dartmouth and Little Compton to develop a coastal resilience plan for the town. So we'll be submitting a full application sometime next month. It's a quick turnaround. And lastly, this doesn't necessarily relate to the work that we're doing in the planning board, but also last night the select board voted to contract with a new vendor for our website. It's the firm called Revise, and if you're familiar with Fall River's website, that's the platform that they use in Fall River. I think it looks pretty nice. It looks a little bit more contemporary, and I think their websites are a little more intuitive to use. And I think the most important thing is that they'll have better mobile compatibility. So when you use your phone or tablet or something like that. So anyway, you'll see that our website's probably going to change in the near future. And I just want to give a shout out to Nadine, because she's been helping the town administrator coordinate this, and she maintains our website for different departments, and that's not necessarily something that she has to take on. So we appreciate that. And yeah, anyway, so we'll have a new website soon as well.
Great. Great.
That's
So,
it.
That's it. We have no correspondence. And we have the minutes from May 21st.
I read the minutes. They seem accurate, complete, so I move acceptance.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Before we adjourn, I wanted to just acknowledge the passing of Wayne Sunderland, who was a longtime planning board member, and whose chair I took when he declined to run again 18 years ago, but he was also a survey commissioner, and I think he died in April. I think he was 87. And he was a longtime fixture in a lot of the Board of Selectmen meetings in the audience after he left the planning board. So, any more matters not reasonably anticipated?
We have water?
We temporarily.
Yes. It's up in the air.
Temporary. That's so reassuring.
Well, they drilled a well next to the old well, and then they started getting feedback between the wells, so they had to seal the old well. Then they continued drilling the new well, and they got water, and then they waited a day or two to get it clear, and then they were here today to reconnect everything. And they drilled 125 feet down, but the pump would only go down 104 feet, which means that it's filling up with sand or collapsing. So my understanding is they connected it. I think it works at this moment, but they're going to have to drill another well.
So we have restroom facilities out back, which means the woods. That's what it means in my house.
So I don't
It's just
know
like we're
if that's the
camping.
total story, but everybody's left. It's covered
It's
up.
not even glamping.
When I was here to see Michael at 4 o'clock or 4:30, it was still open, and the town administrator was looking into the pit with the 3 drillers and all looking glum. So,
Yep.
so that's what I think. Did you hear anything more?
No.
So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.